I am Steve. I am 14 years old. You must be wondering if I meant my grandmother buried me alive as a joke, or think what I'm about to tell you is a fictional story. I'm sorry to tell you, but it's neither of the two. I was buried quite literally by my grandmother. It is a memory that I dread going back to, one that still makes my knees quiver and my temperature rise. The village I was born in was very poor, more so because it was far from the city center. Unlike the other villages that were close to the city center, we didn't have fast enough access to some of the basic amenities required for comfortable living. On many occasions, I've questioned why. Why did I have to be born here? This particular thought is almost always on my mind. What else was there to be when the village had nothing that could keep the company of a child? Everybody was too busy with their struggles to even care about fun. I was particularly lucky, however. My parents worked in the city, and although they didn't come back to the village often, when they do come, they bring back stuff that can keep my company. But not for long. I have over 300 novels in my room, some I've read over and over again, that the pages have become tattered. I guess you can also say, I'm unlucky. Growing up without your parents constantly in your life makes you feel as though you're missing out on something. But I wouldn't exactly say I was missing out. I had Grandma. Grandma was the best. She played the maternal and paternal role so well. She cooked for me, took good care of me, and played with me. We played a board game and she told me one of her bedtime stories before I went to bed that night. The next morning, winter monsoon had arrived. To bathe was now a problem. You know how difficult it is to bathe with cold water during winter. Grandma was one of those people that hated cold water and would rather not bathe at all than bathe with it. When she does bathe with it, you can hear her from the living room counting 1, 2, 3 before she poured the water. And when the water dropped on her body, that's when she cursed out. On this particular day, by nightfall, Grandma and I still hadn't gotten hot water yet, and it was decided that we were both going to go to bed that night without bathing that day. And so, we did. Or so she thought. During the late hours of the night, I decided to go bathe regardless, and so I did. After that, I went to bed and I gradually fell asleep. However, I didn't get up the next morning. My grandmother tried to wake me up, but I didn't even move or breathe. And to top it all, my body was cold because of the cold water I'd used to bathe the night before. Grandma was so sure that I was dead. The anguish and terror she must have felt. Nothing can ever describe it. Before long, Grandma had informed my parents of my death, but it was going to take them about 3 days to get back home. Therefore, Grandma had to do something to my body, so she quickly, but sadly, called the village's carpenter to build a coffin for her grandson, me. Afterward, I was carried to the nearest mountain by some of our neighbors to bury me. The coffin was just laid underground without filling the hole with soil, because my grandma felt it wasn't right for my parents not to see their son's face one last time. So, they just left me in a coffin in the hole, and then they left. It took an earthquake to wake me up from my Sleeping Beauty phase. I gained consciousness and didn't quite understand what was happening. I wasn't able to stand up, I was wrapped in a blanket, and there was complete darkness all around me. I don't think I've ever been scared the way I was that day. I don't even think anything can scare me more than that again. Believe me, I tried to open the coffin. I tried to get out of the hole, but I couldn't. I screamed for help, but all that responded to me was a deafening silence or the sounds of birds chirping. I cried all day and all night. My grandmother had just buried me alive, and she didn't even know it. No one knew it. I'm going to die because of a mistake? I screamed in my mind. It was cold at night, so I stayed inside the coffin and closed its lid. Luckily, on the third day, my parents arrived to see the face of their child one last time before they finished the burial process. I can still remember their shock and my mother's scream when I sat up after they went down the hole and opened the coffin. I think Grandma fainted. They brought me out of that hole and took me to a hospital immediately at the city center for a checkup. There was nowhere else that could provide them the answers they were looking for. How could someone have slept for so long without breathing or moving? What exactly happened? We still don't know what happened till today. My grandmother still thinks I was truly dead and was resurrected by some supreme force. Me? I don't know what to think. I'm just glad I'm still alive and didn't die mistakenly. What do you think happened? I guess it was because I bathed with cold water, which caused the temporary death of my brain.